Welcome to Matters Financial and Geopolitical from the Frontier. Thanks for stopping by. I'm always grateful. Just to remind you that we're hosting the central banker, Patrick Girogi, at Might Speak. That's on Saturday, the 28th of May. And I'm looking forward to that tremendously. In December, Joshua tweeted this about Patrick Girogi. I salute the governor. He is no longer new, an exponential pragmatist and a masterstroke fellow. I said around a similar time that there's definitely been regime change at the central bank, and I look forward tremendously to hosting the governor. If you want to know what Might Speak is all about, we've got a little Might Speak takeaway video. Do take a look. Home thoughts, this photograph caught my attention. In the hurly-burly of the day, JFK and Jacqueline Bouvier Kennedy at their wedding in 1953. And Nisha keeps showing me our wedding photographs, and I keep feeling I look so much younger. We did. We're so much older. John F. Kennedy, we need men who can dream of things that never were. That took me to Don Delillo's Libra, which is really about Lee Harvey Oswald. There is a world inside the world. There is enough mystery in the facts as we know them, enough of conspiracy, coincidence, loose ends, dead ends, multiple interpretations. There is no need to invent the grand and masterful scheme, the plot that reaches flawlessly in a dozen directions. And then we lead more interesting lives than we think. We are characters in plots without the compression and numinous sheen. Our lives examined carefully in all their affinities and links are bound with suggestive meaning, with themes and involute turnings we have not allowed ourselves to see completely. Venezuela plans army exercises as Maduro seeks to prolong powers, announced undefined military exercises for the embattled nation just a day after pledging to prolong his government's special emergency powers. Speaking in Caracas's Ibarra Square after a march Saturday by several hundred supporters, Maduro said his opponents are orchestrating foreign military intervention in Venezuela. Exercises by the army and militia groups would prepare for any scenario, he said. The oligarchy's plan is to disturb the peace so they can justify foreign intervention in Venezuela. I'm not an extremist for saying this, but they're extremists for wanting to carry this out. My conclusions are that we're headed for an implosion. And Venezuela might well be one of the items supporting this rally in crude oil. We're going to have a major implosion. Put up a photograph of President Maduro with his military. The disinflation bug clearly does not include Venezuela. Have a look at this inflation data that David Inglis tweeted. Take you back to August 2015 when I said the end is nigh for crude oil and oil producers from Caracas to Luanda, from Riyadh to Abuja. I said oil-based economies are going to contract, currencies which have already collapsed are going to be routed, and Greek-style austerity will be the order of the day. The meltdown is coming. And I think Venezuela is obviously the first green bottle to fall. The Obama administration is setting the stage for endless confrontation and possibly even war with Russia, and with no public debate. If we continue to build up the eastern flank of NATO with more battalions, more exercises and more ships and more platforms, the Russians will respond. I'm not sure where that takes you. Nobody knows where it takes us, and that's the problem. It could take us all too easily from small provocations to a series of escalations by each side to show they mean business. And given the tripwire effect of nuclear weapons stored on NATO's soil, the danger of escalation to nuclear war is entirely real. I really haven't understood why the US has felt that the Russians needed to be boxed in to this degree. My view is that it really is more about the pivot, and alienating Russia means that it's 1 against 2, when you could quite easily, if you felt like being persuasive enough, had them either sidelined or even 2 against 1. Bernard-Henri Levy tweeted this photograph as a tribute to the Peshmergas. Of course, he played a big role toppling off Muammar Gaddafi. Hybrid war hyenas tearing Brazil apart, Pepe Escobar. This slowly fast should serve as a wake-up call not only to the BRICS, but to the whole global south. Who needs NATO, R2P, or moderate rebels when you can get your regime change just by tweaking the nation's political and judicial system? That's the beauty of a regime change light colour revolution of hybrid war when staged in such a dynamically creative nation such as Brazil. The Hall of Mirrors yields a political simulacrum that could have driven deconstructionists Jean Baudrillard and Umberto Eco, if alive, green with envy. A Congress crammed with fools, patsies, traitors, crooks, some of whom are already being investigated for corruption, has conspired to depose a president who is not under any formal corruption investigation and has not committed any crime of responsibility. Still without a popular vote, the massively rejected tropical Brutus twins Temer and Cunha will find it impossible to govern, even though they would perfectly incarnate the project of the immensely arrogant and ignorant Brazilian elites, a neoliberal triumph with Brazilian democracy, trampled down 6 feet under. Brazil's new First Lady is being attacked over Mary Antoinette spending. This is in the Mail. Currency markets, the euro is at 113.26, dollar index around the 94.48 level, Japanese yen 109.38, Swissy 0.9784, the pound has popped over 145, and remember it touched a 3-week low of 143.33 in the previous session. The referendum is June 23rd. Aussie has had a very strong session. Let me check where that is, 0.7350. Minutes of the Reserve Bank of Australia's May policy meeting, at which policymakers reduced the cash rate by 1/4 point to a record low of 1.75%, were less dovish than some had anticipated. Indian rupee 66.685, South Korean won 1173.88. The Real 349.87, the Egyptian pound 887.94, and the Rand softening even further 15.58.52. We'll come to that in a moment. Dollar index, I'll put up a 1-year chart. I'm comfortable with the dollar as long as we can stay above 93. Commodity markets, have a look at this link which gives you returns that we've seen so far in the commodity markets across the soft and hard commodity spectrum. Gold, 1275, feels strong, and I think you can get long with a 1225 stop. Goldman Sachs, of course, helped oil higher. This is their reports that the oil market has gone from nearing storage saturation to being in deficit much earlier than we expected. Big outages have been. Nigeria estimated outages of about 1 million barrels a day, and then you got the Venezuela situation, which is quite a curveball. And I think people are pricing in the fact that you get a disorderly disruption in Venezuela and oil supplies are choked off. Brent crude climbed to a 6-month high. I'll put up an image, it broke 49, and I expected to see trade 50. Now, obviously, I was looking at the situation through the prism of Saudi Arabia, expecting the Crown Prince, who's now taken over oil policy, to start pumping more oil, and we well might do at these higher prices. We've got to keep an eye on things now. and the oil market does tend to overshoot both ways. I think it's overpriced personally, but obviously Nigerian outage, Venezuela, these are new situations which have developed. The US and other world powers agreed to help the unity government in the fight against the ISIL threat in Libya. John Kerry, good show of international support for Libya's unified path forward, government and national accord, meeting in Vienna. And really, what's clear is that there was no plan for the day after that very horrible murder of Muammar Gaddafi. Macky Sall in Kigali at the West said Gaddafi was a very special man. Prefer him to what has happened now in Libya, and I think that's an important point. Go back to 2011, my piece, Gaddafi's body in a freezer, what's the message? And I I'm left thinking this dead Gaddafi business is one powerful message. Marshall McLuhan's prediction in the Gutenberg galaxy. The new electronic interdependence recreates the world in the image of a global village has come to pass. The image of a bloodied Gaddafi, then of a dead Gaddafi in a meat locker, have flashed around the world via the mobile, YouTube, and Twitter. Put up a photograph of a younger Muammar, well, not so young, but a photograph taken by the New Yorker photographer. Senegal intends raising $500 million to $1 billion through the sale of Eurobonds, Sukuk or Samurai bonds. This is Macky Sall again. The economy is expected to expand 6.6% this year, the most in sub-Saharan Africa after Ivory Coast and Tanzania. Growth has averaged 4.7% since Sal 54, a geological engineer, wrested the presidency from Abdoulaye Wade in 2012 elections. Peanut production reached a record 1.1 million metric tons last year, maybe even higher this year. Rice output has doubled to 900,000 tons since 2012. Sal is targeting 1.7 million tons by 2017. And this goes back to the point I've made severally, that you get the agricultural side right, and you tend to do quite well in Africa. Senegal's dollar-denominated bonds have returned 8.2% this year, compared with an average of 7.6% for 17 sub-Saharan African securities. The yields on bonds due in 2024 saw an 8-year bond 7.1% on Monday. Have a look at how sub-Saharan African bonds stack up. He can't bribe all the population, and he can't kill all the population. So said Moishi Katumbi. And this is the point for President Kabila. It takes me back to that piece I wrote about Ouagadougou, and the revolutionary contingent attains its ideal form, not in the place of production, but in the street, where for a moment it stops being a cog in the technical machine and itself becomes a motor, a machine of attack, in other words, a producer of speed. As we look around the world today, we can see a battle for the street, from the streets of Bujumbura to the streets of Baltimore. In November last year, I wrote about Ouagadougou's signal to sub-Saharan Africa and concluded that we need to ask ourselves how many people can an incumbent shoot stone cold dead, which is, I think, the question Moishi is asking. In such a situation, 100, 1,000, 10,000. The point I was making is that there's a threshold beyond which the incumbent cannot go. Where that threshold lies will be discovered in the throes of the event. Which countries in Africa top investment attractiveness index 2016? This is Ernst & Young. My piece over the weekend was about the geopolitics of pipelines in East Africa. I said President Magufuli has shifted the center of gravity for East African oil and gas south in one fell swoop. I said he's moved with speed and precision, and paired price of brokerage charges is winning. Put up a photograph of him yesterday. He went on an impromptu visit to the airport when it was shot that screening machines didn't function. Zuma factor stymies Gordon's bid to rescue South Africa's economy. Saying President Zuma spent the past 5 months lurching from one scandal to the next, repeatedly undermined Gordon's authority. Gordon is now at risk of being charged with espionage and fired, speculation that drove the rand to a 2-month low, despite a denial by the presidency. Zuma's actions have repeatedly damaged the economy. In December, he named little-known lawmaker David Van Rooyen as finance minister, sending the rand and the nation's bonds into a nosedive before reappointing Gordon to a post he held from 2009 to 2014. He backtracked only after coming under pressure from business leaders and senior ruling party officials. The central bank has cut its forecast for economic expansion this year to 0.8%, predicting the slowest growth since a recession in 2009. There's a huge amount of respect for Pravin. This is Barton and McKinsey. South Africa isn't on a good path. There's no question about that. Have a look at how the rand reacts to political uncertainty, and also a photograph of Jacob Zuma. South African all-share up 3.39% year to date, rallied 1.57% yesterday. Dollar rand, Zuma machinations refer we're on a weakening trend. It all depends. If he gets arrested, we'll see a big figure move in the rand. Egypt, EGX30 up 5.76% so far this year. Nigerian inflation has soared to its highest level in 6 years, according to the FT. Naira forwards surged by the most on record. Of the 3-month Naira non-deliverable forwards rose by 14%, the most on a closing basis since the contracts began trading in March 2011, to a record 267 against the dollar. 1-month forwards jumped 11% to 238. Contracts maturing in a year climbed 5.7% to 314, suggesting a 58% drop in the Naira from the interbank rate of 199.05. Nigeria has held the Naira at 197 to 199 since March 2015, even as falling oil prices cause government revenue and export earnings to plunge. Vice President Osinbajo announced a review of the currency regime on May 11 that may feature a devaluation. That was a shift away from recent comments by President Buhari. Those comments came on the same day the government allowed fuel importers to buy foreign exchange on the black market, rather than just from the central bank and oil companies. The unofficial rate weakened to about 360 to the dollar on Monday from 320 a week ago. Goldman Sachs is saying this move is likely to lead to a restoration of partially allotted multiple exchange rates, but it is less clear whether it will also lead to a gradual lifting of capital controls. The only way to resume capital inflows is to lift the capital controls. Nigerian all-share has closed at a 4-month high. It remains down 6.35% year to date. Ghana Stock Exchange closed at a 3-year low, down 10.59% so far this year. Mozambique's president is due to meet President Xi Jinping in China. Of course, he's got plenty of problems. He's probably got his hand out. Fintech takes off in Africa as lenders tap mobile technology. This is about making loans in East Africa using credit scores derived from mobile phone data. Uncollateralized lending has already started to transform Kenya's micro, small and medium enterprises sector. Hundreds of thousands of loans worth more than $150 million have been issued since March 2015. When KCB and M-Pesa, the mobile money platform of Safaricom, began collaborating. The vast majority of borrowers were previously considered uncreditworthy because of their lack of credit history and access to financial services. However, KCB and M-Pesa accepts about 80% of applicants, with an average loan size of $40 and a default rate of just under 2%. It's much more efficient and accurate than the old system, and we're seeing much earlier repayments. That's Joshua and KCB. Growth is proving exponential. Every second a new loan is issued. We're only a year into this service. Bob Collymore, I picked up on this, like the other providers. Inventure is using increasingly detailed data to make credit decisions. For example, the Santa Monica-based company found that if at least 40% of an applicant's contacts were organized with both first and second names, they were 16 times more likely to repay on time. Those indicators are just about invisible in the financial sector and marketplace. Now we're bringing this data to life. These people are becoming creditworthy. Our goal is to change the perception of risk and level the playing field. The demand is huge. In 2013, the IFC estimated that MSMEs in developing countries face a financing gap of up to $2.6 trillion. Mobile phone-based lending is likely to expand along with soaring smartphone use. Kenya police fired tear gas and stone-throwing protesters who were protesting about the IEBC. It's actually not very far from my office, 1.5 kilometers. Kenyan yields have slipped below. Well, just returning to that point, I think there's a lot of theatre going on, unfortunately, and we've got to keep an eye on that. But for now, I don't think it represents a serious political response to the situation at hand. Kenyan yields slip below Nigeria's as fortunes diverge. Kenya's average local bond yields have fallen below Nigeria's for the first time since early October. And I think that speaks to how markets feel more confident about East Africa than the West. French retail giant Carrefour has opened its first store in Kenya today. I said the supermarket space has been dominated by local indigenous players with some small exceptions. The arrival of Group Carrefour signals that this cozy market is set to come under pressure. Carrefour is surely targeting the top slice spend, and in that regard I think they will be well received. Kenya's formal retail market is dominated by privately held and family-owned businesses such as Nakumatt, Tuskys and Naivas, with only one listed supermarket chain in Chumi. Kenya is mulling scrapping some tea taxes to make the industry profitable. The chief executive of the Kenya Tea Growers Association said we either break even or change to a different crop. Kenya shilling still at a 9-month high of 100.7. Nairobi all share up 0.42% this year. NSE 20 closed at a 10-week low. That's down 3.31% so far this year. Safaricom closed at a 4-week high yesterday, 17.35. Plenty of noise in the newspapers around tenders and so forth, but I discount a whole lot of the noise, particularly because the folks promoting it have used some very suspect folk to promote the story. It doesn't help the argument. Safaricom is 0.5% below 2016 closing high and just 2.8% below an all-time intraday high of 17.85. I thought the full year earnings release was muscular, and I expect Safaricom, which is plus 6.44% this year, to post a fresh closing high in due course. KCB down 0.6%, set to conduct a rights issue to cement their position at the apex of the Tier 1 bulge bracket banks. News out of Chase on Friday, signalling most banking services were now being provided, also confirms KCB has moved the dial effectively with dispatch. Equity Bank down 0.6%. I thought the Q1 earnings were shapely and deserving of a more positive price response. Carbasic traded over 1.2% of its shares, closed up 1.01%. It's had seen some heavy volume of late. EABL unchanged at 297, up 8.79% this year, plenty of headroom. And Kengen, which is conducting this 2-for-1 rights offer, you hold one share, you can buy 2 rights shares. Closed at a 10-week low of 705. It's down about 12% since announcing the rights issue, and I think that's now overdone. Once again, thank you for stopping by.